You guys know Nate, the Canadian prepper. Him and Chris over at City Prepping, we just got off of an email chain where we did some communication back and forth. There's only been a couple of times over the last 5 to 6 years that we have looked at the state of events and our own preparations and said, guys, we have got to put gears in order. We have to really start hunkering down and getting ready in ways that we hadn't been recently. And I mean really putting things into overdrive. Now, Nate has some things that are coming out, some real revelations about what's going on around the world that he said are basically going to scare the living bejesus out of anybody listening, and some experts in the field who are going to back this information up. We didn't even discuss who that is, what that is. We didn't really get into any of that. He just said, Brad, Chris, you guys might want to get your gear in order. You might want to really start taking things to the next level a little bit more seriously. And as you guys can see behind me, we're doing just that. We just started planting some fig trees. I had luckily been given some fig trees. We purchased some separately, so we just put some of them in the ground. Behind me, you have some tire gardens that are over here. Now, a lot of people are going to say, don't use tire gardens. Tire gardens are going to poison you, and you're right. If it's used longer than just a couple of seasons, you might start leaching some of the things from the rubber into your food. That's definitely not anything that anyone wants. But, guys, I want this season's food. I'm not too worried about next season or the season after. I'm going to get to that when the time comes, but by then I'll have a little bit more of my own preps in order. Behind me, behind the camera here, I have some corn, some other things that are planted. We've got our chicken concern in order, and we're just starting to, like Nate said, go into overtime. Why? Because things are really getting wild out there. I saw a video recently from an individual who was accosted trying to get to their vehicle. I saw people who were attacked inside of their homes on Ring cameras or Wyze cameras. I have basically seen everything getting worse, just like you have been told it was going to start getting worse. And then we have the election season coming up, and what's going to happen with that. I'm really starting to get a little bit concerned about how this is going to play out, because we're already operating inside of a world without a rule of law. It's lessened at any event. The cops aren't doing the copping like they used to. The paramedics aren't bringing people back to life like they used to. It's just not the same time that it was in 2019. Here we have a warning from U.S. special agents saying that China is rapidly developing space weapons. They're starting to use kamikaze nuclear satellites and robots. Experts say that China will utilize nuclear assault space to assert global dominance. They've already got robots, they say, on different areas that we can't see. We simply don't know the threat, according to this one expert. What you do recognize is that space just became the high ground. You own the geostationary orbit, and then you're able to determine what happens below. So as soon as China, and I think this is maybe why Starlink is allowed to operate, because we're out in the country, guys. When I look up to the sky, I see beautiful stars on cloudless nights, but I also see the Starlink satellites traveling slowly across the sky. And it wasn't anything that I ever thought I would see. It definitely hampers your view of the night sky, but you know what they are. You know they're satellites. Maybe there's something happening there. Why Musk is allowed to operate in this way and obscure the view of Earth from space. There might be something bigger to this picture. They say once you own the orbit, you're able to dominate everything that happens below. Every part of your life, including security, relies on GPS. How your missiles operate through the air, how your planes move and navigate, even the movement of finances takes place on some degree from space. And if you're able to close that down, if you're able to shut down GPS, then you can easily cause such massive economic harm as to bring an entire country to a standstill. They say it's okay, corral up there. That's really what's happening. Now, if you guys been watching that space, we know that we're seeing a whole bunch of stuff go on from our sun. Elon Musk said that what happened with this most recent CME, the most recent solar storms that we had, threw this entire world amok. We had them here in Alabama, and looking up to the sky with the naked eye, you could see the Aurora Borealis, which was something that is once in a lifetime. I never thought I'd see it. If we had had 2 such storms, right next to each other while our atmosphere was already done, you wouldn't be watching this video right now. You wouldn't be talking on a cell phone today. Your car might not start up. Anything that wasn't protected, either under tin roofs, if you're lucky, if it wasn't that hard, inside of some sort of metal bucket or containment system, maybe on shipping containers, there'd be a certain amount. Now, there are government operations in order so that if we do see a CME, they will reroute all electronics that are inside of cargo containers on the ocean across the world, and that will be brought to government headquarters. Then you will have the Army control any electronics that are in there, at least checking to see what's faltered or what has been destroyed, what hasn't. They're going to get it. You're not. So if you're not buying those things now and performing the adage that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, then you're not going to have those things when that happens. Nuclear weapons, robots. China also launched kamikaze satellites, they say, that will fry other satellites with infrared signals. Now, this is the executive director of the Henry Jackson Society. They told media outlets, don't mess with us when we interfere internationally. This is what China is saying. Because if you do, there's a danger that China will utilize nuclear assaults in space, which aren't under any sort of agreement like we have on land-based or earth-based nuclear weapon systems. He added that consequences will be devastating. If you think about every single infrastructure and development that we have today, they are all controlled by computers. It's all controlled by connectivity, by satellite systems. This will have severe repercussions in everyday life. Now, I might do okay out here when the shite finally hits the fan for a little. You might do okay in your area. And when I say I'm rural, I mean I am rural. There's not even a bar in the city. There's one hairstylist. There is nothing. There's a couple of banks because there's always banks, right? But you will not see this type of normalcy that you can even see today again. You will be living in chaos. And so you and your family have to understand how to operate in chaos and in turmoil. And I mean, you better have somebody strong at the head of your group that everyone else listens to. That means that person doesn't need to be any sort of dominating individual. They just need to have the smarts, right? The know-how that other people go, okay, this person understands what they're saying. They know what they're talking about, and they're likely pointing us in the right direction. Without that, your group is going to fall apart and everybody's going to say, no, I want to do it this way. No, I want to do it this way. This is what I think is better. No, you have to have collective movement inside of an operating group or else you have it falling apart. Moving forward, we see historic levels of rainfall and flooding across South America. This has fueled conspiracy theories. These theories say that secret government programs and scientific institutions are to blame for the disaster. Now, just on a recent video, I talked about cloud seeding. I talked about how they're using different things up in the atmosphere to affect our weather here on Earth, and it is true. Now, to the degree at which we have been told about or warned about, that I don't know. What I do know is that other countries around our world, and I want you to look it up for yourself, India, China, look up China weather modification missiles. Guys, they are right out there. They tell their people, because what can they do about it? Their people can't do shite. So they tell their people, hey, today we're launching a missile into the atmosphere. We're going to unleash a whole bunch of chemicals into the clouds, and you're going to get rain for the next 3 days. And the people just look up there and they nod their head and go, okay. It doesn't matter. They're not told how bad it's going to be on their food or their crops. They're not talked to about the effects it might have on human life. That doesn't matter. Or what the earth might do. Because the earth is an organism. And when you start to screw with it, it will try to correct itself. That's how the earth has always gotten by. You get famine, you get plague, you get volcanoes, you get drought, you get flooding. The earth will correct itself. So when we start screwing around up there and we start putting poison into the atmosphere like that, the earth is going to try and correct itself. And if it thinks on a higher level, I don't know, does it? I mean, you see plants, and if you talk sweet to plants, and the plants that are sometimes prayed over or given good energy grow better in scientific studies than the ones who aren't given that same treatment, maybe there's some sort of things we don't understand. So what if the earth just decides, well, you're poisoning my planet. Maybe it's time to get rid of you. And then we see the plagues of our history's past. So what's happening in the Rio Grande, they say, is not natural. One woman took to the platform to say, let's open our eyes. She blamed things on high-frequency research programs and other institution-level diseases. Other people have posted images of airplanes dumping nefarious chemicals into the sky. The theories paint an ominous picture that somehow denies what's happening, blames the government and institutions that are orchestrating planned tragedy for murky motives. So planned tragedy, false flags. It seems like everything that we were told was a conspiracy theory has a little bit more truth to it than we'd like to believe. So we have to at least look at what they say is right and say, is it? We have to look at what they say is wrong and say, is it? You have to start to question everything. And maybe we'll find a little bit more understanding and a better path forward. Guys, I hope that you will take Canadian Preppers' warning to heart. I hope you'll take our warning to heart here. Chris, City Prepping, he's going to be putting out a whole bunch of educational stuff. He said that's really what he digs into. That's where he really excels at, is step-by-step educational things for people. Just keep watching. Keep seeing what's happening and do your best. No one can be absolute ready, but you can do your best. And I hope that you will. Stay safe, everyone, and good luck. It's probably going to be turmoil ahead.